Good evening. Welcome back to the Mindbender Mental Performance podcast. You know who I am. And if you don't, I'm Kowalski, the brother to Matt Kowalski, the son to Dan Kowalski, the son to Ana Maria Lopez. We didn't have Tylenol. We didn't have NyQuil. My mom lit the sage and said, Mijo, spread out your arms. And then the sage went around you. Today, we're going to dive into a episode of mental performance and life optimization for people who play sports or people who play the game of life. Today, we're going to do a book breakdown on the book. The title here, It Takes What It Takes. If you work with me, you know that's a term that comes up quite frequently. I thought it would be apropos to give credit to the man who made the title possible, Trevor Moawad. It takes what it takes, how to think neutrally and gain control of your life as best you can, right? We're always on the edge of order and chaos. So let's go right to the book. Quote, that's why I wrote this book. You don't need to be an elite athlete to train your mind like one. You simply need to have challenges that must be overcome. And guess what? You're human. So you absolutely face challenges every day at work and in your personal life. Maybe you were passed over for a promotion. Maybe you're trying to go to school to better yourself while working and aren't sure how to squeeze anything into the 24 hours in a day. Maybe you have a bad boss and don't know how to manage your interactions. Maybe you've just had a child and you're struggling to adapt to all the extra work at home. Maybe your spouse just told you it's over. We've all been there. Back to the book. Once you finish this book, you'll be equipped with the same tools I'd give a team seeking a title. You'll learn that champions don't think negatively or positively. They think neutrally. You'll learn that champions behave as if they have no choice. You'll learn that champions make detailed plans. You'll learn that champions visualize what they want. You'll learn that champions lead themselves before they lead others. Couple things. So we talked a lot about they think neutrally. How many sides to the coin? Most people say two. No, what about the ridge? What about that ridge that sits right there, right? That's neutral. Stimulus, response. And right there, that's the breath. That's the neutrality. And then you'll learn that champions visualize what they want. Things happen twice, first in our mind, then in reality. Use the power of mental imagery and in visualization. You'll learn that champions lead themselves before they lead others. Better people make better players. Better people make better teammates. Personal development comes before professional development. So, if you know, Google Trevor Moawad if you don't know who he is. I'm not going to dive into reading his bio to you. I'm going to give you the cliff notes, and then you can go find out on your own. Sweet. It's freaking NTM out here. I'm telling you that right now. NTM. The wind is pumping out here. Haboob might be coming through. If you don't know what that is, Google that. It's a weather formation out here in the flatlands. Back to the book. It takes neutral thinking. Down 1917, Russell Wilson hadn't gone into the tank. You could tell when the Seahawks next got the ball back. We can still win this game, Russell yelled. Let's go. 4 minutes and 50 seconds. I had to raise it up a notch because, that's Russell Wilson saying that. QB1 at the Super Bowl. Why hadn't Russell given up? Why did he treat the next play as if the previous ones didn't matter? Because he stayed neutral. Neutral thinking is a high-performance strategy that emphasizes judgment-free thinking, especially in crisis and pressure situations. It is the cornerstone of what I teach the athletes and teams that employ me. The thing about neutral thinking that resonates with so many elite athletes, most of whom are deeply skeptical of any self-help, is that It's real. It's true. It acknowledges that the past is irrevocable, that it can't be changed with mantras or platitudes. Neutral thinking shuns all attempts at illusion or outright self delusion, which are often the foundations of other motivational systems. Neutral thinking strips away the bull and the biases, both external and internal. That's fucking fantastic. Wow. I mean, that's it. Absolutely. I've been talking about neutral thinking. If you've been around, if you know, you know. But man, I mean, that's the way that that's put there. And they say most athletes, most of whom are deeply skeptical. Of course, there's 4 stages of buy-in. Not for me. Okay for others. I give it a try. Oh shit, I can't believe I did it any other way. So there, everybody goes through that. And I love this neutral thinking shuns all attempts at illusions or outright self-delusion, right? Sometimes you need truth tellers around you to make sure that your highs aren't getting too high and your lows aren't getting too low, because it's never as good as you think it is and it's never as bad as you think it is. Hey, Mark! He's got the red dragon. Nah, dude, yeah, the guy gets his steps up, I'll tell you that. Let's go back to the book. Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, and self-delusion, right? You need truth tellers around you. You need people and coaches who aren't afraid to share the truth with you, aren't afraid to get fired, that are there to help serve you in any way that you can, keep you neutral. It strips away the bullshit when you can stay neutral, huh? Okay, let's go back here. Some quick context. Okay, but about Russell Wilson. Russell was a QB of Seattle Seahawks. He was the highest paid NFL player in history. He's also one of Trevor's clients, right? The guy that wrote this book. And the two of them created businesses together called Limitless Minds. He wrote the foreword to the book, and is a case study Trevor comes back to throughout the book. Trevor tells us about a playoff game in which Russell played one of the worst 55 minutes of his young football career. He had thrown 4 picks, and they were losing badly. He actually said interceptions, but back to the book. He kept his thing. That's Cleveland Indians. That's why I'm saying I'm holding the line on some things. I don't know if it compares. Back to the book. He kept his thinking neutral, embracing the reality of the situation while focusing on what needed to get done. Now it's obvious to see that he wasn't negative and drowning in his failures. What's less obvious to see is that he wasn't thinking positively per se either. The reality is that there wasn't a lot to be positive about. And if he pretended that all was awesome, he would have sounded inauthentic and would have been less effective. He simply looked at the clock, did the math, and got to work on the next most important task. It's powerful. That's neutral thinking. Try it. It works. If you want to win, when I hear did the math, simply looked at the clock, did the math, and got to work on the next most important task. Had a shit 55 minutes, but was able to have a series of steps that he could go to reduce any decision fatigue, to keep it simple, and he wanted to win. And if you want to win, that's what's important now. The next play, the next breath, the next pitch, the next shot. Okay, let's go back. Let's get back to the book here. Okay, back to Trevor. Okay. He says that's neutral, staying in the moment, giving each moment its own history, and reacting to events as they unfold. It takes away emotion and replaces it with behaviors. Instead of asking, how do I feel? You should be asking, what do I do? Don't ask, how do I feel? Ask, what do I do? Wow. Are you the fighter or are you the victim? All right. You can develop these skills if you're willing to let go of a few things. Negative, cynical thinking doesn't make you more realistic. It just makes you negative and cynical. Biased thinking doesn't help you either. You need to steer clear of your feelings and make an honest assessment of each situation you face. Don't worry about what you feel. Rely on what you know. Trevor Moawad, the book It Takes What It Takes. Buy it. It cost what it costs. Back to the book. Goats and GOATSs. 3 years later, Russell and I would go over this play and its aftermath with former Oklahoma State quarterback Mason Rudolph for our ESPN show QB2QB. Right here in this moment, you realize that if you're going to go for something, you're going to have some heartbreak. Russell told Rudolph as the interception played out on a nearby wall. But if you're not willing to go there, you're never going to get there. In other words, you have to be willing to be the GOAT, the old negative meaning of the word my generation grew up with. If you ever want a chance to be the GOAT, or what the young generation, of course, calls the greatest of all time. Welcome to Chapter 2. It takes a plan. This time we get a backstage pass to what was going on Russell Wilson's mind before and after one of the biggest plays in Super Bowl history. It's so big it has its own name. The play. For those who may not know, Russell won a Super Bowl in his second year. Then he led his Seahawks back to the Super Bowl the next year. The Super Bowl that had the largest television audience in American history watching it. The viewership packed at 120.8 million people, which is one of out of every 3 Americans in the country. You know what they say? Well, 120 million people watch Russell Wilson lead an epic comeback against the Pats and then throw a pick at the goal line with time expiring when they could have handed it to the beast, Marshawn. Love you, Marshawn. For those who may not know, Russell won a Super Bowl in his second year. Oh, yeah, we got there. Pardon me. You know what Russell did? He pulled himself together, conducted himself with poise in the post-game interview, then got to work to get better. Hitting his offseason with a ferocity to alchemize that into something positive. How'd he do it? Well, the neutral thinking certainly helped. So did the fact that he knows that you can't have a shot at greatness without risking failure. You can't have a shot at greatness without risking failure. And failure is the thing that binds all of us together, except it's the thing we don't talk about. It's funny. Back to the book. As Trevor puts it a few pages later, that was the mental part, owning it. He'd held the trophy the year before. He'd shoulder the other side of it now. Derek Jeter, Russell's favorite athlete, said what Russell was now living. To be able to hit the game-winning home run, you have to be willing to strike out in the same batter's box. That translates to football pretty easily. To have a chance to throw the touchdown pass that wins the Super Bowl, you have to be willing to throw the pick that loses the Super Bowl. Those two things live in the same moment. You know who else that sounds like? Mr. Hero's Journey himself, Joseph Campbell. And tomorrow, you know what? We'll end it today with this. No, we'll end it right there. We're going to come back tomorrow and keep firing this away. This is going to be a multi-day mini seminar on Trevor Moawad's It Takes What It Takes, because the book is that rich and chock with so much goodness. But we're going to keep it short and sweet, and we're going to come back at you again soon. You already know it takes what it takes. It begins before it begins. And not every day is going to be great, but it don't have to be terrible. You know we can have a good shitty day. See you on the other side. The best is yet to come.